This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Thanks for tuning in. I've got a conversation with guitar maestro Bill Hudson to share with you. Bill has played in Doro's band, with John Oliver's Pain, Udo Dirkschneider, Circle to Circle, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and David Vincent from Morbid Angel's relatively new outfit. It's been around for a couple of years, but he plays Morbid Angel tunes in I Am Morbid, and Bill plays the guitar in that outfit. The catalyst for this chat, though, is due to the launch of NorthTale's second album. NorthTale is actually Bill's own band, so he's the one who recruits the members. The name of the album, which will be out on 12th of November via Nuclear Blast, is called Eternal Flame. So we talk all about the album and a bunch of other subjects. I'm quite friendly with Bill. I think he's a great bloke, so I'm always keen to have a conversation with him. This is the third or fourth time we've been able to connect, and it's always a great conversation every time we catch up, so I hope you enjoy it. Before you hear from Bill, though, I want to play a sample of the title track from the new album, Eternal Flame.
Hey, Andrew.
Oh, hey. How you going?
Good, man. How are you? Sorry for the delay.
No, that's fine. No dramas, mate. How's things been travelling for you in COVID land Mark 15?
Well, it's been tough to say the least, but also very creative. I when COVID hit, I had 52 shows canceled, or 55 or something like that. 50-some shows canceled. And so there went all the income right away. So I went back to teaching guitar, which in itself is like an experience I haven't had in a while. I haven't taught full-time in a while,
Yeah.
in like several years. But that also left me at home to write material,
Yeah, it certainly paid dividends, I reckon, because what you've done with Eternal Flame here, I mean, I liked Welcome to Paradise, but I've got to say, mate, you come along in leaps and bounds on Eternal Flame.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That means the world. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, you truly have. It's hard to know where to start with it all, because it just seems it's not as better in every way. You know what I'm saying? It's just that you naturally evolve as a songwriter, but you've evolved in a way where you've incorporated all of these beautiful symphonic elements to give it some soundtrack qualities, your music some soundtrack qualities.
Yeah, exactly. That's and that's a perfect way to describe it too, like evolving as a songwriter, because I mean, I haven't done that much as a songwriter before. That's my first album. Welcome to Paradise was my first album. And I've written for other artists before, but never anything that was mine, So this is the second time, and I feel that like if I repeated the first formula, that wouldn't be a challenge. That would just be another album. Nobody would care, So this time around, I was free to do whatever also, because of the lineup change and having a new singer. So I was free to explore things I couldn't even think on the first album.
Yeah, well, the first album, unless you've been in a band where you're surrounded by the same sort of 3 or 4 people, you've got, what's the old saying? You've got your entire life to write your first album, and then you've got all of these experiences with these other people you've been on the road with or you've been in a band with, and usually it happens when you're a bit younger, this sort of stuff. But when you're a bit older and you've got all of this other experience that you've got, which for me from my perspective, you mean you're a gun session player, magnificent session player. We've had conversations about that, but you're if you like, one of the key characteristics that you have in the world of heavy metal, probably more than anybody else, is that you can slot into almost any situation and make it work. And I feel like you've been able to do that here with your own music, in that you've been able to draw all these different elements together, if you like, and make them work as well. So did you do most of this yourself, or was this something where you actually relied on some... So you got Patrick Johansson as your drummer. You relied on the musicians around you to give you feedback, and you reacted to that feedback in order to change things?
A little bit, and especially in the drum department, yeah. But I mean, at its core, I don't like to call it that, but like it was done pretty much as a solo album, because I wrote every melody, every chord, every part. You know what I mean? I did get feedback from the band, but they like the first album had more music collaborations than this one. Now, I worked with the singer a lot on the lyrics. You know, that I'll give him credit for that. And we worked together. He brought some beautiful, amazing ideas. And of course, I mean, with a drummer like Patrick, a lot of things that I had, not a lot, but some things that I had like programmed on the drum machine, he's just like, man, this is not playable, you know? And when a guy like him says it's not playable, it's probably too unrealistic, you know? But I mean, I did have a lot of outside help. You know, I had an outside orchestrator. I had and I had a percussionist, a guest percussionist. I had several guest artists. But the writing, most of the writing, it's mine. You know, it's a lot of my music. It's exactly what I personally wanted to do.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, with this symphonic aspect here, it doesn't sound like it's your first go at it, if you know what I'm saying, on one of your own albums. It sounds very accomplished. It sounds very, what's the word? It sounds like it's all there. I've had a couple of listens to the album. I only got it a few days ago, but that was the first thing that really jumped out at me. So is that aspect, that symphonic aspect, is that something that you've been wanting to do?
Yes, absolutely. But I think a lot of people are doing it. Some are doing it fantastically well. You know, I can mention, you know, bands like the Septic Flesh. Yeah. You know, there's bands like that, or the Italians. I forget what their name is.
Flesh God Apocalypse.
Flesh God Apocalypse. There's bands that do that extremely well, like that. But then in power metal, there's bands that don't do it that well. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of them. So I feel that the symphonic element nowadays has become almost expected. If you play in a power metal band, people even ask, what about orchestrations? But see, when I first got into power metal, it wasn't like that. Like when I first heard Angra, that was out of this planet to me. You know, like it was a power metal band, or a metal band, I should even say, that had, you know, some orchestrations in it. That the very concept was crazy to me at the time, and it wasn't overdone the way it is now. You know, like there's a lot of bands that have symphonic elements or orchestrations from beginning to end, and the music sometimes even relies on that. And that was never what I wanted to do. You know, like I did go to school to be a conductor. You know, I went to college in Brazil to be a conductor. So I wanted to do it, but I wanted to do it right. I don't want it to rely. I didn't want to rely on it. I didn't want it to sound fake, because there's that too, man. A lot of orchestrator nowadays, a lot of people that do orchestrations nowadays kind of do it by ear. You know what I mean? I wanted a real deal. I wanted a guy that did soundtracks, and this is why I had an outside orchestrator. And he had to be just here and there, you know, like it's in maybe 20% of the album. It doesn't rely on it. You know, we can perfectly play a show as a 5-piece band and not have the orchestrations and still work the same way, you know. So that was important to me.
Yeah. I'm so glad you say all of that, because So a couple of things there. I never actually viewed NorthTale as a power metal band, just a great heavy metal band, first of all. And the second thing is that, I can't stand a lot of power metal, to be honest with you, because of the reasons you just articulated. They're using a keyboard, whatever it might be, or even using online tools, applications and the like, so they write the guitar part, then they put all this widdly diddly stuff, I call it, around it, and it sounds forced. Yours doesn't.
Yes.
Yours, and that, to your point about you being a conductor and approaching it from that perspective, you can hear that because it's integrated.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I mean, dude, believe me, I know power metal can be really, really cheesy and really, really bad. In fact, I don't even like to use the term power metal to our band because at the same time that he puts you on the style, it makes it clear to people that we're talking about that genre that is inspired by Halloween or Stradivarius or whatever. It also puts you in a box with a lot of other shitty bands, And what you said, the diddly diddly stuff, the stuff that comes to just make that guitar melody bigger, I'm not into that. Like if I'm gonna use an orchestration, it has to be written for that. Basically, the parts of the songs that use it, the band is done. The band is part of it. You know what I mean? Like we're playing part of the orchestra. It's not that the orchestra is replicating some melody that we do. There's a lot of things that make power metal bad. The lyrics a lot of the time are really shitty. So I didn't want shitty lyrics. I didn't want like I'm well aware of it. I'm well aware of everything, and that's everything that I didn't want on this album.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the lyrics. So, and we'll talk about, I'm going to butcher his name, but is it Guilherme Haros? Is that how you pronounce?
I mean, yeah, kind of like in Portuguese, it's Guilherme Hirose.
Okay.
But Gil or Guy works.
Gil or Guy, yeah. So what were the lyrical themes you guys worked on?
So yeah, man, that I'm really excited to talk about on every interview because that is brand new to the band, and that's something I wanted to do. So on the last record, I wrote two lyrics, which was "If Angels Are Real" for a friend who died, and "Shape Your Reality," which is basically about what I believe life is. You can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, as long as you take the right steps. So the song was about that. It was essentially about starting NorthTale. NorthTale is the result of me shaping my reality. So that was important to put on the first album. Now, when it comes to the other lyrics on the first album, that's where like the musical differences between me and the old singers lie. Like he was more of a guy that wanted to talk about, just being metal and being cool and let's go. And he also did a lot of this fitting words to my melodies. So like he would hear a melody and come up with some random word and then write based on that. And a lot of European singers do that, and it's a thing. But I think that's what creates bad lyrics. You know what I mean? And I really had a problem with that, and we got into it a few times. That's why we ended up parting ways, not because of the lyrics, because the same happened with music too. But the standard musical differences in this case totally applies.
Yeah.
So when Guilherme came in, I was like, okay, we still need to write about self-empowerment, stuff like Shape Your Reality, because I really am a positive person. I want to spread a positive message through my music, and we have a little bit of that. But there's also other things to be talked about. For example, track number 2, Wings of Salvation, is about the inventor, the Brazilian inventor of the airplane. Right? We are taught in Brazil. Like in Brazil, nobody knows who the Wright brothers are. We are taught that Alberto Santos Dumont invented the airplane, and it's not even discussed. There's not even a discussion who did it. We only know this story, And when I moved to America, I started hearing about the Wright brothers, and traveling around the world, everybody's telling me about the Wright brothers, and I'm like, no, you guys are wrong. A Brazilian invented the airplane. So I was like, well, is Brazil really that good at indoctrinating people that everyone, my entire family, all my friends believe a lie? So I went and I did some research on this. And as it turns out, the Wright brothers did fly first they flew in 1901, but they kind of sort of they just catapulted themselves, on a. Whereas Santos Dumont actually had a flying machine that went around the Eiffel Tower, and the entire press of the time saw it. And he got a money prize, and the guy was just a badass. He was awesome. Doing research, I found out all this about this guy, and I wanted to write about him. Because that's a story that nobody outside of Brazil knows. After when the war started and he found out that they were using planes in the war, he killed himself because he couldn't stand that they were using his invention to kill people. And that's I want to sing about that. That's a meaningful story. And and there's stuff like Midnight Bells, the single that comes out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That's about my singer's religion. He wrote those lyrics, and he's a spiritualist. He follows this Brazilian religion of Umbanda, where they incorporate spirits, and to the people who follow this religion, they believe they talk to the dead. And my singer has a spiritual guide, like his spirit guide, and he wrote a song about this spirit. Mm-hmm. So, and then Land of Mystic Rites is just about being Brazilian, what it means to be Brazilian, what we do in our day-to-day lives. So there's no, there are positive lyrics. There's, like the standard lyrics, but you won't find through the flame and the fires, I hold my sword. I'm not writing about that kind of shit,
Yeah, lot to discuss there. Yeah, because I picked up on the Land of Mystic Rites and also Wings of Salvation. The chant, to your point there in the Land of Mystic Rites, it does have a spiritual feel to it, that song there. And the chant, can you talk about what that chant is?
So the chants, what's interesting is the chants are not in Portuguese. Those are not Portuguese words, but they are words used in that religion, in the religion of Umbanda. And because I had to record it, Dennis thought it was Portuguese, so he asked me to record some vocals, and I didn't know how to do it, so I had to sit and learn it like a different language, like you would, But then I did do research on what he says, and it's basically Guilherme is basically thanking the spirits for the blessings. Like for what I understand, he really has kind of asked the spirits and been granted his job in the band. So he thanks the spirits in that song. And so it's interesting that you would feel like a spiritual quality to it because we don't know what they're saying, it's a different language. And Midnight Bells is related to the same subject, kind of.
Is the religion similar to Hare Krishna? Do you know?
I wouldn't know how to answer that, but what their religion is a syncretic religion brought by the slaves to Brazil back, in the 1500s when the country was discovered. And what happened is it's based, for what I understand, it kind of has a little bit of voodoo. But they're not poking holes on dolls, but that kind of thing, the with the dances and the fact that people incorporate spirits, So I'm here talking to you, and I receive this spirit in my body. So suddenly I'm speaking a different language, and I look completely different in my facial demeanor. It's pretty impressive. I've been to some of these rituals. My parents used to be a part of this too, and. So anyway, it's a syncretic religion that these slaves brought to Brazil in the 1500s. But because the Portuguese were colonizing Brazil, they didn't want that. They wanted to bring Christianity to the country. So what they did is they continued doing the same rites and dances and everything, but they were calling their saints the Christian names, just so the Portuguese would be okay with that. So it's very interesting. I've done a lot of research on this. It's you go to Africa and they have the same rites, the same dances, the same everything. They just call it different names. But there are certain names like Eshu and Asha and stuff like that, that they're even in the English language for like followers of that religion from like Nigeria and stuff. Like those people, they have this. It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a much older religion than Christianity.
Yeah, no, I ask about the comparison to Hare Krishna because it's a branch of Hinduism. And the chant reminds me very much of the, Hare Krishna Rama, they call it. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. This thing,
I don't think so. I don't think it's similar in that sense.
Yeah. So, but Gil, of course, you mentioned he's from Brazil as well. And I did read the bio. You weren't that keen on getting anybody from outside of the United States simply because the tyranny of distance, and especially what's going on at the moment. So he must have had tremendous qualities for you to accept him into the band.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I auditioned close to 40 people, from the most well-known singers to just dudes that did covers on YouTube. So I gave like everyone a chance. I talked to a lot of people, and it basically came down to 2 European singers. They weren't in the US, but they were in Europe. And I was actually kind of ready to fly one of them over here when like shortly like before the pandemic. And then Guilherme wrote me on Facebook. He was the last person. I was already done with the auditions. I didn't want to think about that anymore. I already had the producer, already had half of the songs. And he emails me and he's or Facebooks me and he's like, "Hey man, I know you're looking for a singer." And my immediate answer was no thanks, but no thanks. Also because he was in Brazil. I'm from Brazil. I know how hard it is to come to this country and go anywhere when you're from there. I didn't want another problem in a band that's already spread throughout the world. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I already have a guy in Sweden, a guy in Missouri, and me here. It's like I need to somehow make this a little more realistic. But then, he writes me back and he's like, even if you give me a 0.01 chance to audition, I want to do it. I'm like, you know what, man? All right, here's some songs without vocals and send me your auditions. And he did. I mean, he sang the first song and like within the first couple lines, I was like, dude, like that's the guy, like I was really glad that he came because all of the singers that I talked to before, they're amazing. They're amazing. I only talked to really good singers, but in a way I was kind of compromising because I wanted to bring the Brazilian quality into the music. And Guilherme had a lot of that. You know what I mean? He listened to Andre Matos. He listened to the guys that I liked as a kid. So it was really, really impressive how he came out of nowhere. And I was ready to hire someone else.
Mm-hmm. And look, your solos this time around are they're magnificent. So did you labor over them, or were they the solos, did the ideas for the solos and the melodies within them, did they come to you fairly easily?
Oh no, I gotta say this time around I've labored a lot more over the solos. Like on the first album, I wrote some stuff, some of the more technical stuff, but a lot of it was improvised. Like a lot of the parts that weren't supposed to be played always the same. And honestly, over the solos kind of didn't age very well with me. Like I listened to some of my solos on the first album and I don't like it that much. I'm like, it's fine. It's not bad, but it's nothing super impressive. So on this album, I wasn't, just like with the rest of the music, I wanted to stand out from the first album, So I wanted to, there's parts in Nature's Revenge that there's a big arpeggio section that I swear to God, I spent 2 months trying to learn that, but also right now I could get on stage and play it. Like the first album, I did a lot of it by parts, a little bit here, a little bit there. Everything on this album, every solo you hear is one take, So it's one single take that might have an edit here and there. That's okay, but there's nothing like do one lick, stop, do another lick, stop. That's how I did the first one. This album, everything is one single take if it's a solo. So I wanted it had to be playable by me. Like it had to be something that I can realistically play, but it's beyond my comfort zone at that point. And I gotta say, man, I've become a better player because of that album. There are things that there are several things, not only on the solos, on rhythms too, that I wanted to hear a certain way, and normally I would have given up because I can't play it, and I would have changed it. But no, on this album I sat and I practiced until I could nail it the way I wanted. Thinking of a show, be like, but when the gig comes, I have to play it too, you know. So everything was thought out like that. It has to be real and it has to be playable, but it has to be better than the first one. So yeah, it's been a lot of time.
Yeah, well, you know, I rate your playing extremely highly from conversations in the past. But to hear you say that there were things that you were going for on the previous album that you thought, nah, it's a little bit beyond my reach right now, and that you spent the time to actually get that stuff right. That's why I have those feelings about your playing, because I can hear that you are reaching for something else. You're going a little bit beyond, but you're not doing it, like I said earlier, in that widdly diddly sense. You're doing it in a way where you're trying to unlock the secrets of the guitar.
Exactly. That's a great way to describe it. Wow, that's awesome. But it is true. It is true. Like for example, to be specific, there were things that were like at 170 BPM, and I'm like, okay, at that speed, there's only, you can play an arpeggio, you can play a scale. There's not much you can do, you know, to like when you're playing that fast. So I just started coming up with these licks that were all out of place, you know, and be like, it has to sound musical, but I got to be able to play it slow, because otherwise it becomes that thing, you know, it's either a scale going up or an arpeggio. You know, I wanted to get out of that, but still, you know, sound cool, you know. So I used a lot more tapping this time, you know, like I didn't tap that much on the first album. This one is all over it. And I went a lot more for the legato, the fluid sound for arpeggios. You know, I didn't sweep that much. I did a little bit, but not a whole lot. And but every single note that I recorded on this album, I could play live right now. You know, that was important to me.
Okay, yeah. The other thing, and I've only recently had a chat to the great Kai Hansen, who appears on the album. You guys are a perfect match, by the way. But why Kai?
Well, see, I met him when I was in Udo's band, and we kind of met each other as peers. I don't think he realized how much of a fan I was. And because I grew up idolizing that guy, you know, I was 14 and I saw him play a show in Brazil for the first time. And it was the first show that I saw that wasn't a huge thing in a stadium, something that I could actually see the band and be like, you know what, man, if I work hard enough, I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
Like it was the first time I felt like that. And he wrote the soundtrack for my teenage years, you know, Kai Hansen and Timo Tolkki. That's what I listened to as a kid, you know, Gamma Ray, Halloween, Stradivarius. And the song that Kai is on, Future Calls, the opening riff I straight up lifted from Ride the Sky. I'm like, you know, like this is my Halloween tribute. And on the first album, I invited him to produce, and he didn't have the time. This time around, I knew he definitely wouldn't have the time because of Halloween, but I was like, man, maybe you can do a guest thing for me. You know, that would be awesome. I don't even care what you do. Just be on the album and let me tell people that you're on my album. And he's like, well, how about I sing something and I'll bring my son Tim and play a guitar solo. I'm like, fuck yeah, that sounds great, you know. So what he delivered, I mean, I gave him the melodies. I gave him the song with my singer singing, and told him to do whatever he wanted. And what he delivered was just perfect, man. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's what I wanted. You know, that makes me want to listen to this song. So I couldn't be more grateful, man. Kai is a really, really good friend, really, really good guy. And I'm very glad that he did this.
Yeah, you remind me of each other in terms of talking to you. You know, ever since I first spoke to you, it's easy to talk to you. Same thing with Kai.
Yeah. I feel uncomfortable sometimes because he's so cool. And I'm like, dude, he's Kai Hansen. And he's like, you know, being this cool to me. I know people who aren't half as famous who are total jackasses.
Wankers, yeah,
you know?
I know.
And then you get a guy like him and he, you know, he's your buddy.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I felt like Kai's one of those guys. As I say, like you're talking to me like, oh shit, this is actually an interview. Okay, you just think you're talking to a mate down at the pub or something. But something else for you is, and I've mentioned it already, your adaptability and the way you can just slot into any band and make it work. You're still you, but you make it work for the greater sum of the parts, so to speak. You're playing with Doro alongside the great Michael. God, I've had a number of conversations with Michael Schenker as well. Lovely fella. But are those shows that you're doing, are they the first since the pandemic started?
Yeah, absolutely. They are. Yeah. And the last show I did before the pandemic was also with Doro, was at this festival, House of Metal, over in Sweden. Mm-hmm. And yeah, 10 days after the pandemic started. So I'm looking forward to getting out there again. I leave on the 25th, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's fucking Michael Schenker, man. When I get to meet him, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, have you spoken to him much?
No, I've never met him, ever.
Yeah, he's definitely a character. He's a character. Like, he's the sort of guy that will just meet you and start talking to you, and you won't get a word in edgeways, but it's all gold.
That's so awesome, man. Ralph, you knew Ralph, right?
Yeah,
Ralph Santal. Yeah. So he was Ralph's idol, and I didn't, honestly, I knew the name, but I didn't know his work before I got really close with Ralph. I mean, I knew the classics, of course, but I didn't dig into his actual, into the good stuff and even the videos, until I started hanging out with Ralph. It was like his hero. So I keep thinking, since this tour, I'm like, man, if Ralph was alive, he would be so jealous of me right now.
I'm sure he's cheering you on from the beyond, though, mate. I'm sure he's very happy
man.
for
He's got a picture with Michael Schenker from when he was like a 20-something years old at MI. It will be cool, man. If I would definitely, if I have an opportunity, I'll definitely try to talk to him a little.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And look, do you know how John Oliva's doing at the moment?
Man, yeah, I don't know if you saw the news recently. Did you?
Yeah, I saw the news.
Yeah. So that scared the shit out of me, man. I woke up to that, and I'm like, oh my god, and I started texting him right away. He didn't respond, so I texted Chris Caffrey, and he did. He's like, dude, I've been trying to figure out too. I talked to Chris Caffrey for a while, and he said, well, I finally heard from John. And then 5 minutes later, I got a text from John back. And he literally said, hurting but okay. And I'm like, dude, are you going to be okay? He's like, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Just being like that. So he's okay. He texted me back. But that's about all I know. That was last I heard from him. That was back then.
John's a magnificent talent, but I think he needs to take out a leaf out of your book with the abstinence side of things.
Oh, no shit. Yeah. And it's funny, man. It's funny. When I met him, the very moment I met him, Zach introduced me and said something about me liking to drink, because at the time I did. I did a lot. And John just pulls a joint, shows it to me. Just smoke this instead, man. And that's kind of like what has been happening in the past 10 years, So it was good advice, but yeah, it definitely worked for me. I wish he would slow down a little bit, but he's John, man. That's John Oliva, I don't know. There's legendary stories. I haven't been there for any, honestly, around me, he's always been, I've never seen him go crazy, not around me, or I heard stories. That's all. But,
Well, he's, with his brother passing away so young, I mean, you do carry that stuff around with you. There's no doubt. And look, God, I'm guilty of it too. I just had a conversation with Donnie V about it, self-medicating anxiety with alcohol. So many of us do it. It's one of the key reasons we bloody drink. But, there's no two ways about it. If you've got responsibilities, you've got to get a handle on it, and moderation is the key if you're going to continue doing it.
Absolutely. I'm just glad that John is somehow able to handle it, still, I'm just glad that he's alive. But yeah, I couldn't, I had to stop.
Yeah. Well, you got it though. You understood that was the case. So,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
David Vincent, I Am Morbid. Is that still something you're involved in?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We were supposed to have done a tour last month. Of course, it got canceled.
Mm.
And that tour has already been rescheduled 3 times. But yeah, I mean, right now we're supposed to go out next March. It should be the well, it should be it should have been the anniversary of Blessed. So I'm thinking that it might still be the same show next year, you know.
Hopefully,
But
fingers crossed.
yeah, yeah, man. But he's also doing shows with Ultimas just like I'm doing shows with my stuff. So he's not that available for it. But as much, I mean, that's one of my favorite groups of people to work with. Just I Am Morbid in general. Being on tour with those guys, I just love it, man.
Mm.
David, Tim, and Kelly are my brothers, and even when Ira was in the band, he still is my brother. Like
Mm.
he was. I just love working with them.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I'd love for you, if it could ever be arranged, to bring down both NorthTale and I Am Morbid.
God, me too, man.
Yeah. Do you get
We
any
talked
offers?
we talked to a promoter for NorthTale. We talked to a promoter a couple years ago. We're looking at doing this thing that it would have been Hammerfall, Firewind, and us, and that never ended up happening. And then the pandemic started. But I still talk to that promoter sometimes. So we'll see, man. It's just so expensive, like to get there is like $10,000 to get everyone out there. But I mean, that's that's probably my top country that I want to go that I haven't been to yet. Like I have, I don't know if I didn't mention this on the last podcast, I thought about it, but like I have these dreams sometimes that I'm in Australia in some underground place. I don't know where it is, and and it's always the same place. Like there's an underground river, and I don't know why I know it's Australia. So, and I've been having that same dream since I was a kid. So next, whenever I make it there, I gotta find this place. I don't know where it is. I don't know what city it is, but I'll find it.
Well, I know I've mentioned this before, but my godson is Brazilian. His father's from Brazil, from Fortaleza, and
Okay.
there are tons of Brazilians in Australia. It's I haven't been to Brazil, but from what the Brazilians tell me, I'm not saying it's the same, but it's the English-speaking version of Brazil.
I hear that a lot, and going by some of my Australian friends, I would say so, because you guys have that you're a lot less stuck up than the other English speaking countries.
Yeah.
So and plus you have similar weather. I would think.
Oh, it's virtually the same. I mean, you look at it, it's on the same longitude.
Yeah.
Similar longitude, no, southern hemisphere. Yeah, so it's virtually the same. We said instead of having a beautiful Amazon, we have this bloody desert, though. That's the only difference. This arid desert. But I don't think I've asked you this question before. But Tommy Vex, are you in touch with him at all?
Yeah, we talk sometimes. He was just playing a show in Orlando, and we were supposed to meet up, but I went out of town the day before he came in, so we didn't end up meeting. But yeah, we talk. We haven't done any work together since Westfield Massacre, but we'll still talk. He's cool. I'm really glad for his success and for the fact that he stands up for himself. Love it or hate it, the guy is honest. He's the real fucking deal.
Well, as you well know, in the United States, the same in Australia, but it's just more overt in the United States. This veer toward left-wing ideologies and totalitarianism. As soon as you have an opinion which isn't in that box, they go after you, and that's what he's experienced.
Yeah, and exactly, and people don't know what to do because he's black. Like they can't cancel him. But Tommy is smart that he knows it. He's like, if that's your game, I'll fucking play it the way you do. But I mean, he's. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the guy. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people talk shit about him. He has problems with a lot of people. That is the truth, And this is even before all this political shit. A lot of people didn't like him before. But as far as like my relationship with him goes, I have nothing bad to say about the guy.
Yeah, no, he's a talent. I'd like to see you guys do something again. Something a bit gnarly.
Me too. I always tell him, like, you need a more metal thing. And we tease it. We talk about doing something, him and Tim again. But it hasn't happened yet. Maybe in the future. That would be cool.
Sweet, mate. I'll let you get to the next one. Always good to catch up. And you got a killer album here, mate. Just would like to catch up in person and see you guys perform live. That'd be the next thing. Yeah,
man. If you're an Australian promoter listening to this, please bring us down. We'll show you a good time, I promise. And Andy, thank you so much for having me, man. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to the next time we can do it again.
Likewise, mate. No worries at all. Thanks very much, Appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care, my friend.
No worries.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you.
There he is. Bill Hudson, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure to catch up with Bill, it must be said. NorthTale is the name of his band. That album, too, is a stunning album, it must be said. I don't usually like power metal-y sort of stuff, and I don't really consider what Bill's doing in NorthTale to be power metal, but it has stylings of that. Eternal Flame is the name of the album. Definitely check it out. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. If you like that chat, go across to scarsandguitars.com, where there are many more just like it. If you could like, subscribe and share, I'd truly appreciate it. But even better, leave a comment. That's the thing that really helps, and helps me move up the ladder, courtesy of the social media algorithms as they are built these days. Comments are king, really. It's all about engagement, not just clicks. That's it. Until next time, have a good one. Stay safe. See you around.